So, Baldur's Gate 3 has been out for some time now, and many of you may be familiar with various builds and how multi-classing works by now. However, after nearly 300 hours of playing myself, I finally feel ready to share my builds with the world, and I believe I have come up with some pretty unique ones that you might want to try for yourselves. Quick side note, just sort of fun, in one of the Temple of Shar battles, I decided against taking out the portals and instead letting them spawn continuous enemies until being completely overwhelmed, just to see if my builds could hold up against the endless armies on tactician difficulty. And yes, my builds in fact trivialized some of the hardest encounters in this game, so I knew it was time to start sharing them here on this channel. Heyo everybody, it's Johnny5 Alive here, and welcome to what might end up being a new series on this channel. Depending on how much engagement these videos get, I'll definitely continue to do more of them. Today I wanted to start the series off with my Shillien Knight build. I found this to be one of the most devastating DPS builds out of anything I've tried in Baldur's Gate 3 so far, and it's only going to get better as I'm only currently level 9 in this playthrough, and I'm about to add in Rogue live right here in this video here today. So this build is effectively a heavy armored fighter monk in addition to adding a rogue later on, which we're about to do. And I have some clips going on in the background of this fighter monk in action, and as you can see, it's absolutely destroying everything and just cannot be killed. I freaking love it. So let's talk about the monk for a second, because from all the tier lists and information out there online about classes in Baldur's Gate 3, I don't feel like the monk is getting enough credit. The monk is one of the most powerful classes in the game, in my opinion, as they can best utilize their bonus action with powerful utility and extra damage. Monk also gains an extra unarmed attack using their bonus action right at level 1, making this class very powerful right from the get-go. Monk can basically dash and jump for free using a bonus action and key. They could deflect missiles and throw them back at their enemies, and they eventually get stunning strikes, amazing CC, topples, extra attack, and so much more. Now, when you pair the monk with a fighter, they gain access to heavy armor, shields, and martial weapons, while only losing the benefits to the monk's increased movement speed while unarmored. The heavy armor plus shield far surpasses the unarmored benefits in terms of AC. Martial weapons allows us to use versatile weapons like longswords and spears alongside with our shield, while still gaining all the benefits from the monk attack passives. Fighter also grants us access to the fighting style defense for an even additional +1 AC, and as we build it up, we'll get things like Action Surge for a bonus attack once per short rest. And when you pair the monk with the Battle Master subclass of the fighter, you gain access to battle maneuvers, further bolstering our combat prowess. Trip attack pairs really nicely with the rogue sneak attack, because as soon as an enemy is down, you have advantage on them, enabling you to sneak attack even if you're not invisible. Disarming strike is really powerful just to disarm and make big units useless, and riposte is a great way to get some extra damage when the enemies miss you. Now, when we pair it with Rogue, sneak attack is incredibly powerful, can be used to initiate combat, causing all enemies to be surprised and losing a turn. Sneak attack can be used every single follow-up turn so long as you have advantage, which you will when you trip attack them using the monk trip or the battle master trip. A lot of people don't really know this, but sneak attack also procs as long as there's an ally besides your target. Basically, when you gang up on an enemy, sneak attack now triggers. So if you want to get good value out of your sneak attack, just run one of your melee fighters up to an enemy, then bring in your character to do a sneak attack. So between our multiple topples and always fighting on a team, we're basically always going to have advantage for sneak attack's extra damage. And finally, when we pair this build up with a thief, Fast Hands gives us an extra bonus action, and the monk of all classes utilizes bonus actions the best through Flurry of Blows, our topple, extra unarmed attacks, and Step of the Wind dash. What's most powerful about the monk's bonus action abilities, when scaled with Tavern Brawler, they are doing just as much damage as a regular action point, effectively turning your bonus action into a real action. And if we're pairing that with Thief to give us a bonus action, this character effectively has 3 action points. give them haste, and now they have 4. So that's a long-winded description of all the things going into this, making it so powerful. But how do you go about building it? How do you do it? What does it look like at level 1? What does it look like at level 4, 5, and so on? How am I going to build up this character and actually multi-class it? And that brings us to our multi-class guide sheet. I'll have a link down in the description below for this, which I'll outline all the information you need to know. One of the things I found with multi-classing when I was first getting into it myself and looking into some of the guides and different tier lists and suggestions online, they only ever gave a brief explanation, and that's about it. So I gave you guys the long-winded explanation of why this is powerful. It showed you why it's powerful, but how exactly are we going to build that up and why? And it's nice having a little, what do you do at level 1? What do you do at level 2? What do you do at level 9? And so on. A complete breakdown to follow on your other monitor while you're playing through the game. And I'm going to be doing this for all of my classes, plus a few extras that I'm going to experiment with on new playthroughs another time. So every character in this game has what I call breakpoints. Major breakpoints, such as level 5 when you gain the extra attack, level 3 when you get your subclass, and so on and so forth. Here I break down all the major breakpoints that are going to benefit this build from each of the 3 classes that we're going to use. Then I start to show how we're going to actually use those breakpoints in our level up flow. For the sake of clarity, so it looks a little bit cleaner, I'm going to go to the wiki. I'll have a link in the description below to the wiki. It's a very good resource. You can find it yourself online. I highly recommend the official one, not the F Extra Life one. This one has a lot more information, is much more clear. And here, for the monk, we could take a look at all of the breakpoints for each of the levels and how we're going to mix that into our multi-classing. Now, Death Strikes is also awesome. It's a monk passive that raises the minimum damage dealt with monk weapons and unarmed attacks with a 1d4 bludgeoning. So it's just going to add damage to our unarmed attacks. And this one's pretty important here. Bonus Unarmed Strike is a monk passive feature that grants us a single follow-up unarmed attack using a bonus action. And when you pair this with Tavern Brawler Feat at level 4, the damage is going to scale tremendously higher, making your bonus action do just as much damage as your action point with your bonus unarmed attack. And Flurry of Blows is a bonus action that also uses a key point to do 2 quick succession attacks. So it's basically doing 2 of these unarmed strikes. And when we pair this with Tavern Brawler, it's actually going to do a ton of damage. And that's where the monk becomes so powerful, even just at level 1. Adding it into pretty much any class, you're getting way more value out of your bonus action, especially when paired up with Tavern Brawler. So I would consider just level 1 really, really good value. At level 2, we get our Step of the Wind dash, and you get to use your key and your bonus action together to get a basically free dash. And you could also jump for free. So you could dash and jump to get in position, close the distance on enemies, and then continue to unleash damage on them. Now, we're not going to get any value out of unarmed or unarmored movement because we're going to be using armor. Patient Defense isn't bad because it will allow us to increase our defense temporarily for a turn. And then finally, we get to level 3, and that's a major breakpoint because you get to choose your subclass as well as getting deflect missiles. Now, a lot of people will probably say Way of the Shadow is like the way to go, especially because at like level 5, you get Shadow Step. It's really powerful. I definitely recommend doing a rogue monk build, but I think that would be a build for another day. Here and today, I want to discuss Way of the Open Hand because it upgrades your Flurry of Blows into 3 options, and you get the topple, the stagger, and the push. And what we really want to focus on is the topple because you knock them down and you immediately have advantage over them, meaning you will roll 2 dice and your accuracy goes through the roof. You'll almost never miss a toppled character, and it always enables sneak attack to work on toppled characters. So we can topple them and we can immediately sneak attack them because our topple uses a bonus action. And then as we get to level 5, when we get extra attack, we can open up with a sneak attack and then follow it up with a regular attack, utilizing all of our abilities all in one turn. And level 5 also opens up our stunning strike, which we can also use after using a sneak attack. So everything's coming online. It's amazing. Now, quick look at the fighter right at level 1. One thing that people don't know about like multi-classing, if we add fighter to monk, we don't actually get the heavy armor. So you actually want to start as a fighter. That's why I call this the fighter monk. Just 1 level into fighter to start gives us that heavy armor, and then we can build into monk from there. But we also get proficiencies in martial weapons, shields, and the ability to choose a fighting style, which I particularly really like defense because we're not going to be dueling or two weapons or archer. The only thing it leaves us with is defense. With all those things combined, fighter gets a lot of value right at level 1. In fact, I think just leaving it there and then adding rogue in from there is probably the better option. But there are certain breakpoints in the level up process, and some of the footage that you saw me playing with, I was a level 3 battle master mixed with monk. That's simply because at level 8, I felt the use of battle master might be kind of fun. So I went with a 5 monk 3 fighter temporarily, and it was really, really fun. But now that I'm level 9, I'm going to go back to level 1 fighter, level 3 rogue, level 5 monk. But the action surge at level 2 is really nice, but it is only once per short rest. So you're only going to get value out of this for 1 turn during 1 short rest, right? So action surge is good, but you're not getting value out of it every single turn, nor every single combat. But when we do get to level 3, we get the battle master, the superiority dice, and these are short rest. So our key is short rest. With these two things combined together, you have all your resources on a short rest, making the monk come online after every single short rest. They're going to have all the resources to dump it all, short rest again, and then they're back online. So this is a really good pairing, and our battle maneuvers allows us to get trip attack, which will knock them on the ground prone. You'll do that extra damage, and then you can follow up with a sneak attack to a prone enemy and also just never miss them. And this will use a main action, whereas the monk's flurry of blows will use a bonus action. So now you have a chance to trip them with your action point as well as a chance to trip them with your bonus action. And lastly, we have the rogue, which I believe is a very underrated class, in my opinion. Probably one of the strongest classes in the game when it comes to multi-classing. One thing you will notice at level 5, the rogue doesn't get an extra attack like the other classes do. And that is because sneak attack is so powerful. If you look at the progression, every other level, sneak attack actually gets an extra dice, making sneak attack do more and more and more and more damage. And Larian thought that this extra damage would be kind of OP mixed in with extra attack, but we're gonna take the extra attack by multi-classing. And that's why I think the rogue is very, very powerful when you use just the first 1 to 3 levels mixed in with pretty much any other class. Now, I do want to mention this for anyone just interested, just general information. When you start as a rogue, like this is the main class, the level 1 that you've chosen, you get to choose 4 proficiencies. So it can be any of these: acrobatics, sleight of hand, performance, perception. A lot of the charisma based abilities are in here, and this is the only class in the game gets to choose 4. Some of them, like Bard, get to choose 3, I believe, but most other classes get to choose 2. Some get to choose 3. Rogue gets to choose 4, making the rogue the best starting class for your main hero in terms of RP. And if you add in like a level of ranger, you get like 2 or 3 more, and then you add in a level of bard, you get like 2 or 3 more. So if you start with a rogue and add in other stuff, you get like the best RP character, and that's what I'll cover in a future video. But I wanted to mention that here because this build that I'm talking about today actually works if we just remove fighter from the equation and just build a rogue monk. So if you want the rogue monk but you still want the RP, you can start with rogue, add in monk. Just note that you won't be using the shield, you won't be using the heavy armor. You'll basically be playing as a rogue while gaining the benefits of the monk, which is still very, very, very powerful. I just wanted to throw that out there as an option for anyone wanting to theory craft or think about this as a main character playthrough. So level 1, you get sneak attack. Sneak attack is awesome because it does an extra 1d6 physical as long as you have advantage. And advantage is basically going to proc to proned enemies. We already talked about all the ways we have to prone them. It also works with all these other conditions as well. If you have a mage throwing out blinds or paralyzes and webs or anything like that, it also works when you're hidden or invisible, which you're going to want to start every combat sneaking up on them to get that first hit in to surprise them so that they miss a turn, and so on. It's particularly useful if you've already played through the game because you know where the encounters are and you know how you're going to sneak up on enemies because you've surveyed the area in past playthroughs. I found on my playthrough playing a rogue as my main character mixed with bard that I often engage almost every battle with the advantage, but some of them encounter through dialogue and you can't always start every battle with a sneak attack. But that's why, once you've engaged in combat, it's important to prone them so you do get the advantage, the double dice. But what most people don't know about sneak attack is, or you have an ally next to. So all you got to do to get value out of your sneak attack when you don't have advantage is gang up on them. So you run one character in, do some damage, bring your rogue in, sneak attack on the same target. You just got to double team enemies to get value out of sneak attack, and you're just going to get that extra damage. And as I mentioned, as your rogue levels up, you're going to get another dice, another dice, another dice, making sneak attack get stronger and stronger and stronger as your rogue levels up. Now, level 2 is kind of a good talking point because you get the Cunning Dash, which uses your bonus action to dash, which is very similar to the one the monk gets, but the one the monk gets allows you to also jump in that same turn for free. So you can run and jump, but it uses a key point. So I would actually prefer to use the rogue's one over the monk's just to save on one key point. However, in the case that you need to run and jump, the monk's version gets value in that situation. So both of them have value depending on the situation, but one of them is a little bit more expensive using the monks versus the rogues. The nice thing about the rogue is they also get Cunning Hide, which means you can, if your stealth is high enough, you can basically just like go somewhere and immediately go back invisible. And then you can open up with another ambush attack. It's pretty cool. And when you're hidden, you also won't really be targeted from enemies. So it's a good defensive ability, but since we're using a shield and heavy armor, not really anything to worry about. Now, last but not least, our biggest breakpoint on the rogue is going to be level 3 because we get to choose a subclass. For this build, I highly recommend Thief for the fast hands. Fast hands is going to give us a bonus action point. And because the monk has so many ways to spend that bonus action point, you're going to want that extra action point. Because they're effectively, their bonus actions doing just as much damage as their main action, and now you have 2 of them. Now, I know a lot of people think the assassin's very powerful, and with the way the Larian has balanced the assassin. So if you look at the ambush, basically, it's a passive that greatly increases damage to foes you surprise. Any successful roll against a surprised enemy is a guaranteed critical hit. Surprised is when you open up the battle with a stealth attack, and your enemies are all surprised. They lose a turn, and for that whole turn, they are surprised. So if you're running in there and hitting them while they're surprised, you're just going to be crit, 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 crit. So I think that's really powerful, guaranteed crits, and that's how this has been balanced. With the addition of sneak attack and ambush, Larian felt that this class didn't deserve an extra attack. However, you're not going to be able to start every battle surprising the enemies. And in fact, sometimes they'll get the jump on you and you'll be surprised. And if you're doing it through dialogue and you're having this RP moment and then you decide to attack, you don't get to stealth from there. So you really only get value out of ambush and assassin on the first turn if you have advantage. It's kind of unreliable, whereas if you look at fast hands, you get a bonus action every turn, every battle, always. You get value out of it every single turn. I think this is more consistent. It's better having that bonus action every single turn for every single combat, whether you have advantage or the initiative or not, you're always going to see value from it. And as I mentioned, that bonus action gets tremendous value from monks. If you're a dual wielding rogue, you'll always be able to hit with your offhand. And if you go dual fighter, your offhand does just as much damage as your main hand, which is why monk rogue is also very, very powerful. So with my leveling guide, I kind of want to like show you where I think this like class starts to pop off. And honestly, I believe just having fighter 1, monk 2 is very, very powerful in the early game. So level 3, when you can first respec, when you get access to withers to respec, you can pop off right at level 3. Now, because extra attack is so powerful, it might be worth it at level 5 just to go 5 points into monk, and you're just going to have to get rid of your armor for a level just to make use out of that extra attack. But level 6 is where you really start to pop off, because you can now do fighter 1, monk 5, and you get all the benefits of extra attack, heavy armor, shields, fighting styles, martial weapons, everything. And that'll happen in Act 1. And from there, we're just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. As I mentioned, level 9, which happens in Act 2, which I just hit level 9 on my playthrough, this is where the build really comes online. You get the fighter 1, the monk 5, the rogue 3. That's immensely powerful. But then the next final breakpoint for this character, when you finally become the Shillien Knight, as I call it, is level 11. You get monk 5, fighter 3, rogue 3. All of the benefits of the breakpoints that we just went over on the wiki from all 3 of the classes combined, level 11 is when you truly ascend to a godly character. But The journey so far, I've had a lot of fun at these breakpoints, such as like early game, 1 to 6 was very fun. Level 6 was amazing. And level 9, I'm about to experience something very, very special. So here's a breakdown of all the levels. If you want to follow it as a guide, what you should respec into, what you should add as you go, that reference is down in the description below if you want to follow this guide. Let's hop into game and show you some of my gear and talk about the class overall. All right, so here we are in game. We have Shadowheart as our Shillien Knight right now. And this is at level 9, but I have not respec'd yet. So I wanted to show this and make this video now because this character is about to change drastically, and I wanted to show how it was before, because she's gonna pop off and change, but like that's kind of going into the end of Act 2 and transitioning into Act 3. So I would rather show you guys what this build is like through the journey of the game rather than the end game. Any of this gear that you see here, if you just type in the name on the wiki, like adamantine splint armor, just typing in the name here, you can see it already tries to find it, and you can find the exact same thing, how I got it, where I got it, and that sort of thing. If you're experienced with the game, you'll probably know where to find most of these items, but if you're curious, just type the name into the wiki and you can go build it yourself. But it's important because I'm about to change all my gear. We just got these 4 pieces from a particular quest in Act 2, and this is actually going to bring the build online. So I'm going to show you kind of like the before and the after. But what I really liked about this build early on is the Gloves of the Belligerent Skies. When the wearer deals thunder, lightning, or radiant damage, you inflict reverberation. Reverberation basically makes the enemies easier to hit. They have less saving throws, and it does thunder damage. And then when they build up enough reverberations, they fall prone. And we've already talked about how prone benefits our build and our allies so much, because our rogues can pop off and sneak attack on them and all that stuff. So she's knocking people prone without even using her prone abilities. Now, how do we get thunder, lightning, and radiant damage? Well, there's a little bit of a bug, or just like maybe it's as designed, but like lightning charges, like boots like this, when you dash, you get lightning charges. Lightning charges adds lightning to your abilities. That actually doesn't proc this. However, I do have a thunder ring, and it just adds thunder damage, and that does proc it. And then we have this ring, when the wearer does thunder damage to a reverberating enemy, it becomes dazed, and they're already reverberating from our gloves, so now they're dazed. So she's just hitting them, reverberating them, dazing them, knocking them prone, doing thunder damage to them, all in succession. Now, if you have a paladin on the team, you can add radiant damage to them, if they're a Vengeance Paladin with the Inquisitor's Might. So you can add that as a bonus action from your Paladin, and then you can Eternal Devotion to recharge it once per long rest, and you can add it again and again and again, or you could just throw in something like Soul Branding if you have Minthara to add extra damage. So those are all going to proc these gloves even better. The interesting amulet that you get, which is the Monk Amulet, has key restoration on there. So I was using that to restore some of my key when I blow through it all. And then once I start off combat, I use a dash to get in to get those lightning charges. I have a bow that gives lightning charges, so if I need to use a ranged attack, that'll get me to 5. And there's been many times where I get to use the Sparks Wall, and basically you get a lightning aura, and that does tremendous damage to everyone around you, jolting them, and I've had some fun using that. The weapon that I have is the Letharian's Wrath, which does a lightning AoE. As its basically a special attack, and that paired with this lightning kind of knight really well, and it all came together, and it was very beautiful. Last but not least, we have the Arcane Synergy. When you inflict a condition, which is our reverberation, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 rounds. Synergy adds your spellcasting modifier to your damage, and basically our spellcasting primary ability is Dex, and we're going to get a +3 damage to all of our attacks. So that's kind of cool. +3 damage to all of our attacks. I'll take it. Absorb the Element has been really nice, because if you get hit by like lightning or something, you can absorb it and add that to your damage. And of course, that's going to give us the ability to proc our Belligerent Skies again. So pretty much every piece of this gear is coming together, other than like our Adamantine Splint Armor, which is just reducing damage and making it so they can't crit us, and it gives us a lot of AC. As you can see on this character, I have 21 AC at this very moment. And that's pretty damn high for a monk. It's a knight basically. Now that's a rundown on the current build that I showed you. That you could do this really early in Act 2. You'll basically have this build right here, right at like level 6 or 7, the moment you approach Act 2. And it's been really, really fun. I've been really enjoying it. I've added in more and more and more as I've went through kind of like level 6 to 7 and into Act 2. But now where you get to the interesting spot, I find this build works particularly well on Shadowheart, and even better if you're planning to play Shadowheart a particular way. I want to show you guys what the updated Shadowheart for level 9 looks like. We are now Fighter 1, Monk 5, Rogue 3, which gives us that extra bonus action, enabling us to do more of these flurry of blows, the topples, as well as our unarmed strikes. While I would really love to use the Char's Spear of Evening, the one downside to this versatile weapon is that it's not finesse-based like some of these other versatile longswords. So if I put this on, I actually lose my sneak attack, and while it does have slightly better accuracy and slightly better minimum damage, the damage here being 10 to 23 versus that of this is 7 to 17, that extra 7 damage per hit, does it outweigh the amount of damage you do with a sneak attack every single turn? While I can only use sneak attack once per turn, I still think I'm going to come out on top using that extra bonus damage from the sneak attack every single turn. Plus, I really like how this weapon comes with the Razor Gale, which is an AoE that goes with my lightning shield, giving me more of that lightning vibe. Still using the lightning boots, which is going to increase my lightning damage as I build up my lightning charges with my bow or my boots. But the Char's Spear of Evening is not lost because I can give it to Minthara, my paladin, to use, which will turn out just fine. But one thing to note is if you don't want to use the sneak attack, you still get a lot of value from Thief with the extra cunning dash, the extra bonus action, but you could easily swap this out for a full fighter, going 5 monk 4 fighter, which will give you access to another feat, which we could then increase our strength to a total of 20, and from there you'll have the access to superiority die. You will have one less bonus action, but you will use a superior weapon, doing overall more damage per hit. So it's definitely an option to consider if you like the look. I mean, the spear, the shield, they kind of go together. Definitely 5 monk 4 fighter is a very viable option. However, on this particular team that I'm running, my rogue bard can stealth, my cleric ranger rogue can stealth. So this whole team is based around doing those ambushes and those sneak attacks, trying to end combat as quickly as possible. So in my particular case, I feel like not using the Spear of Evening is the better way to go, simply because it maintains that sneak playstyle and fantasy that I'm going for. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Shadowheart Shillien Knight build. I mean, it looks amazing. It plays amazing. I've had a lot of fun with this. It's not I don't know if this is the best build in the game. I have some amazing ones that I want to show you guys in the future. So if you did enjoy this series, please do leave a comment, give it a like. And if it gets a lot of engagement, I'm going to go through all of my builds and show you what I do with all of them, and make a kind of leveling guide for them all on that sheet that I've made with the link down in the description below. So give the video a comment, give it a like, give it some engagement, and I'll continue to keep doing these guide videos. But I definitely wanted to share at least this one here with you guys here today. So thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to do it for this one. I'm Johnny5Alive. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye now.